By no means is this article or this blog post meant to be an exhaustive list of all the features in Google Docs. There are quite a few that I didn't get to, but there are a few more that I think it might be useful for me to show you. So I wanted to quickly kind of run through them. The first is that Google saves automatically, and it keeps revision history. So if you see up here, it says last edit was made 2 minutes ago. If I click on that, it'll actually show me my version history. And this is every time that it has auto-saved since I opened the document. Now I can click on these earlier times, and you can see this is a blank version. This is a partially written version. And this is the most recent version. And then if I wanted to, I could click here to restore this version, and it would turn the version that I had at 2 o'clock this afternoon into the most recent permanent version. And that would now be what the document showed. I don't actually want to do that, so I'm going to go back, but I wanted to show you that that's an option. So if, for example, you accidentally share a document that was meant to be a template with a client, and they make some changes to it on accident, you can always go back in your version history to the original. You can also, if you're working on something and decide you liked an earlier draft better, go back to that earlier draft, and it'll show earlier dates, earlier times. I think it saves by default every so often. So you always have that option available to you. The other feature that I wanted to show you is if you are working on a document for somebody else. So let's say somebody asked you to proofread something, or you wanted somebody else to proofread your work. There are actually 3 different options up here under this editing thing. There's editing, there's suggesting, and there's viewing. If you go to viewing, you'll actually see the document in its final format without your little cursor in the way, basically the way that your clients would see it. That is what it will look like if you were to hit print. If you go to suggestions, when you make changes, they instead are made as suggestions. So let's see, I wanted to delete these. So now I'm suggesting deleting those quotation marks here. If I'm proofreading this document for somebody else, I might want to use that functionality, because then they can come in and they can decide for themselves, do I want to delete the quotation mark or not? If I want to accept the suggestion, I could click the check mark, and if I want to reject it, I can click the X. So that's just one option if you have some slight changes you're suggesting to somebody else's document. And of course, the editing functionality gives you full editing permissions and actually makes changes to the real document in real time. Now, it's worth noting that if somebody makes changes as suggestions and then you go to view, the viewing option will be without those suggested changes. So you could then see the original file, even if the suggested changes marked the document up quite a bit. It's a useful tool, I think, to kind of know about. The other features I wanted to talk to you about, I'm scrolling down because I wrote them out here at the bottom of the email, is the autocorrect settings. So if you go into, I think it's under Tools, and there should be an autocorrect option in here somewhere. Maybe it's under File Preferences. So under Tools, and then it's under Preferences, it gives you this option for automated corrections. So if you go under here to substitutions, when you type this, it'll put in this. So you can see here there's some ones that are in here by default. Things like 1/2, it auto corrects it to make it the 1/2 option. You can turn each of these off by clicking the check mark to turn them off, or you can actually add custom ones up here at the top. So one thing that you might want to do is if, for example, there are pieces of text that you type wrong a lot, for example, if you mistype loose leash walking a lot, or if you use loose leash walking a lot, you could actually put in LLW is loose leash walking, okay? And then in your document, what that will do is if I type in LLW, it replaces it with loose leash walking. So it's just a useful feature to know about, especially if there are words or abbreviations that you use a lot that you would actually rather get typed out. It can save you some time. All right, so that is our autocorrect functionality. I also want to show you can convert anything you write in Google Docs to almost any other file format. So if you come up here to File and you go to Download, it will let you download it as a Microsoft Word document, as a rich text format, as a PDF, as plain text. You've got a lot of options here. This is really helpful, especially if you are trying to send something to somebody else who does not have Google Docs. So for example, if I was going to create an ebook here, I might choose to download it as a PDF document instead, and then I could send that PDF document to somebody when they say signed up for my email list, right? So that's one option. The other thing I wanted to show you is the add as an email attachment. So if you come up here to email, you can email as attachment. And what that'll do is it'll take this document and actually attach it to an email without sharing the original document. So if I go to this, send a copy to yourself, optional, but I could send an email to somebody else and it will attach the document as a PDF so that they receive a PDF of the document. You might want to do this, for example, if you are using your Google Docs to create invoices for you. You could then send the invoice as a PDF to the client. You might also do this if you wanted to send a handout to somebody who wasn't a client, right? You could send them the handout as a PDF without creating a folder and sharing the document and all that stuff. There are other times this may be a useful feature to have, but it's just a good thing to know about. The don't attach, including content of email, would copy all of the content of this document into the body of an email. So if for some reason I didn't want to use Google's built-in templating feature, which I have covered in the blog post about Gmail, I could instead keep my templates here in my Google Drive account as Google Docs, and I could add them as the content of the email here. So those are just some additional options if you want to get really deep and use lots of Google Docs. And I hope you do, because I think Google Docs is an awesome tool for dog trainers and for all small business owners.